Bilingual education. Here's an urban legend for you. The urban legend goes like this. When brave, noble Ron Unz, whom I refer to as Lord Voldemort, managed to get Proposition 227 passed in California, essentially dismantling bilingual education, test scores skyrocketed. Guess what? It never happened. Test scores went up, and the New York Times told everybody, an article by a guy named Jacques Steinberg, and we had a very interesting case of pack journalism. Once they got it, other papers got it, and they just ran with it. Jeff McSwan from Arizona State has documented the history of that article and how it got passed along. Let me tell you what really happened in California. Ron Unz leads a charmed life. Two things happened in California at exactly the same time. 1998, Proposition 227 passed. At the same time, we brought in a new test, the SAT-9, our version of Living Hell. The kids took 5 hours to go through this test. Every kid in California had to do it, grades 2 through 11. Wow. Now, it is well known, and this is studies, Robert Lynn, all this came out years before any of this happened, that when you bring in a new test, the first time it's given, scores look low. It's the new test. After that, test scores go up. I call it test inflation. Test inflation happens in general because people get more familiar with the test format. So we've been giving the same test in California now 5, 6 years. Of course scores are going to go up. Test inflation accounts for about half of what we've seen in California, just that all by itself. Now, test inflation has been pronounced in California because of the extreme pressure of raising test scores. These are bribes and punishments. If your scores don't go up, you can be closed down. And until the recent budget crisis, if your test scores went up, you got cash rewards, money you could put in your pocket as an individual teacher and use to pay off your visa bill. I mean, this is hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars as a reward. So you can imagine careers were made and lost because of test scores. So districts appealed to, utilized unusual means of increasing test scores. Am I going to accuse them of cheating? Absolutely yes. There are two ways of cheating. One is to do selective testing. My former student, Tom Galt, explained this to me. He said, find the kids in your class who have infectious diseases and have them sit next to the kids you know are low scorers a few days before the test, and your test scores will go up. Okay, that's number one. A reporter named Nanette Asimov, she is the niece of Isaac, by the way, works for the San Francisco Chronicle. She did a paper 2 years ago looking at SAT-9 differences from one year to the next in the Bay Area, and she found that districts where scores went up, the number of kids tested went down. Districts where it stayed the same, the number of kids tested stayed the same. Another way of raising test scores is to do test prep. Now, inappropriate test prep. Very simple. You want to raise your scores a couple of percentage. Your kids aren't hip to how to take tests. Tell them to guess. If you know there's no penalty for wrong answers, tell them to guess. So you got 4 to go. You've run out of time. Just put in anything. And 1 out of 4 will be right. You can raise the scores a little bit. This is like saying you've raised the temperature of the room, but all you've really done is put a match under the thermometer. All right? By the way, SAT-9 scores have gone up. NAEP scores have not in California. We got rid of whole language. We put in drills and exercises. They have stayed at the bottom. Of course, the critics say, there's still pockets of whole language out there. No, there aren't anymore. No, absolutely not. So it never happened in California, the great increase. Now, I don't want this to be sour grapes and say this is all because of SAT-9. Let's assume SAT-9 is correct. Let's assume it's valid. Well, WestEd did a study a few years ago, research firm, and they looked at grades 2 to 5, and they looked at 2 kinds of schools. One school, both groups had, this is all schools they could find in California, all of them. Both of them had bilingual ed in the old days. One group kept it, the other group dumped it. Increase in test scores was identical, exactly the same. There was no difference. In other words, dropping bilingual education in California did absolutely nothing to increase English scores, just robbed kids of their primary language. We add to that the empirical research on bilingual education. Study after study shows it works, and this is the scientific literature. We were unable to get this into the public eye in California. We tried. Some of us tried, some of us didn't. when you compare kids in bilingual programs and all English programs, the kids in bilingual education do at least as well and usually better on tests of English reading. Recent studies show the same thing, and it works for very good reasons, and reasons that make common sense as well as scientific sense. When we give children a good education in the first language, we give them knowledge of the world, subject matter knowledge, that makes the English they hear and read more comprehensible. They acquire more English. Someone who knows math goes into a math class in English, is going to understand more, gets more math, more English. Second, developing literacy in the primary language is a dramatic shortcut to English literacy. It makes it quicker. My new definition of bilingual ed, why didn't I think of this in 1997, 1998? A method of using the primary language to accelerate English language development. The other half of bilingual ed, which I don't have time to go into today, is to develop the heritage language for its own benefits. This is a separate chapter, one I strongly believe in and independent of this English argument. Okay, that's talk number 5, bilingual education. Thank you very much.